Welcome to the Wife Stories YouTube channel. New video every day, and don't forget to subscribe. Here we go.
There is only one plate on the table. It's mine. The overhead light is off, and the dim glow from the living room spills across the countertop, leaving most of the kitchen in shadows. Outside, no wind, no traffic noise. Silence. That kind of silence when you hear your own breathing. I let the seconds stretch, watching dust motes in the faint light. I feel my heart beating in my chest, steady, but there's a hollowness in my gut. There's never been just one plate on this table before. Not in all the years since Sarah and I got married. I see her mug by the sink, half rinsed, next to the dish soap. That small detail nags at me. She always rinses things thoroughly. She's meticulous, a perfectionist in her own subtle way. Or she was. Now I wonder if there's any part of her life that she treats with the same attention. A few days ago, I might have poured her a cup of coffee and teased her about leaving the mug there. But that time is gone. I let out a breath and push away from the table. There's a faint ache in my lower back, probably from sleeping on the couch last night. Or maybe I didn't sleep. Could have just been an endless half-dream, eyes open, mind replaying the events at that party over and over. I stop for a moment, rub my neck. Feels like I'm carrying a weight behind my skull. I think about how it all started. A simple anniversary party for an old friend. Rooms full of people, warm chatter, the pop of champagne. Sarah standing across the room, wearing a dress that caught the light in just the right way, smiling the way she does when she's in her element. That was the moment I realized we'd drifted too far. Or maybe I'd known it long before, but I'd refused to see it. I leave the kitchen and step into the living room. The couch is still disheveled from my restless night. The blanket's on the floor. I pick it up, fold it without thinking, place it neatly on the armrest. My phone's on the coffee table, screen black, no messages, no calls. I stare at it, waiting. Nothing. I go to the window and look out. Dawn's just breaking. A wash of pale light creeps over the neighboring roofs. There's a dull glint on the mailbox outside. I notice the world is spinning along, unaffected by my personal crisis. That's normal. Life rarely stops for your heartbreak. I head to the bedroom, because I need a shirt. The door is open. Our bed is unmade, pillows in disarray. Sarah isn't there. She left last night after a tearful scene. She didn't say much, just sobbed. Asked me to let her explain, but I gave her silence. My silence is a new weapon I discovered within myself. When I was younger, I might have shouted, demanded answers. Now, a quiet nod or a cold stare does more damage than any outburst. I pick up a fresh shirt from the dresser, button it up. She left behind her hairbrush, that bottle of perfume she loves. My hand lingers on that bottle for a moment. The faint smell of flowers, or maybe citrus, I never pinned it down, still hangs in the air. A wave of memory hits me. Nights when I'd bury my face in her neck, inhaling that same scent. I feel my throat tighten. I step away, determined not to drown in that memory. My watch is on the nightstand. It's past 6 now. I slip the watch on, noticing my reflection in the mirror. My eyes look tired, ringed with faint shadows. My hair's disheveled. I run a hand through it, attempt to flatten it. Doesn't help much. My name is John Ellis. I'm 40. A husband. Maybe. I was one, anyway. And I can't decide which is worse. Losing the person I thought I knew or realizing I never really knew her at all. I move back to the living room, consider turning on the TV, but the last thing I want is background noise. I need to think, need to piece together how it all erupted. Because it did erupt. Quietly at first, then violently in my head. Sarah had told me about the party a few weeks before it happened. Old friends, old colleagues, maybe some people from the agency, she said. You won't know everyone, but you'll fit right in. You're good at that. She smiled in a way that felt different, as if searching for my approval. I said yes, of course. She looked relieved. The night of the party, we drove together. I made some small talk, asked about her day, how her last design project went, if she was excited to see her friends. She gave short answers, eyes fixed on the road. Her dress shimmered in the headlights. She smelled like that perfume. We arrived at a large house, half hidden behind tall hedges. Fairy lights draped the walkway. Inside, the laughter was immediate, the warmth enveloping. A swirl of bright dresses, suits, music from a Bluetooth speaker in the corner. Glasses clinked. I could practically taste the champagne in the air. Sarah introduced me to a few people from her old design firm. Some recognized me, asked about my marketing job. I played polite. Then I caught sight of a man by the bar, tall, well-built, dark hair combed back with casual precision. He met my eyes for half a second, then turned away. I felt that uneasy twinge in my gut. Something about him drew Sarah's attention. She tried not to look, but I noticed. That was Tom, though I didn't know his name at the time. At one point, I stepped outside to catch some fresh air. A group was out there smoking. I joined them, though I don't smoke, just to listen. The chatter was about business, so I drifted. Then I heard a woman's voice from around the corner of the patio. A soft laugh. Sarah. She was talking to someone. That same man I'd noticed earlier. The conversation was low, intimate. I took a step closer, but I couldn't see them. I didn't want to eavesdrop, yet something about her laugh felt wrong. It wasn't the friendly, casual laugh she'd give a colleague. It was something else, a quiet warmth, the kind you share when you're flirting. I remember feeling the jolt of denial. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe she was just talking. We'd been married so long. She wouldn't, right? I forced myself to return to the living room, to the crowd, and I busied myself with a short conversation about sports with a man I barely knew. He offered me a drink. I declined. My stomach felt tight, uneasy. Time passed, not sure how long. The party grew more energetic, or maybe I was just more on edge. I noticed Sarah glancing around. We'd make eye contact, and her smile would slip. Eventually, she came up to me and said something about wanting a bit of space to talk with old friends. I nodded. Of course she needed that. I followed her with my eyes as she moved through the crowd, heading toward the back of the house, where the music was a bit quieter. Then she disappeared. My suspicion flared again. I wasn't the paranoid type, but I felt her drifting for weeks, maybe months. Dinners had gotten shorter, laughter less frequent, her phone always face down, her messages typed in hushed corners of the room. I told myself it was stress from her job. That's the thing about illusions. They crumble slowly, then all at once. Eventually, I found her again near the hallway that led to some upstairs rooms. Her hair was a bit tousled, and that man, Tom, was standing next to her, close. Too close. She looked startled when she saw me. He looked away, cleared his throat, made some lame excuse, and walked off. Sarah tried to say something, but I just stared at her. She lowered her eyes and turned aside. My heart pounded. I needed a moment. I walked to the bar, took a tumbler of whiskey, burned my throat going down. I wanted to cool the edge of the jealousy searing inside me. I breathed, counted, tried to stay calm. People swirled around me, unaware. Then I saw Sarah slip out a side door, a small door near the back staircase. Tom trailed after her, a few seconds later. That was it. I set down my glass, followed them. The hallway was dim, only a faint lamp shining near the base of the stairs. I heard quiet voices from a half-open door at the end of the hall. An office or a guest room, unclear. My pulse slammed in my ears. The rest of the party's noise faded behind me, like background static. I reached that door, heart hammering. Part of me felt sick about what I might see. Part of me needed to see it. I pushed the door open a fraction. Inside was dark, the curtains drawn, only a sliver of streetlight slicing across the bed. The smell of perfume, Sarah's perfume, drifted out. I saw movement. her silhouette against the faint glow, his figure behind her. Her back was pressed to his chest, her head tilted as though she was trying not to moan too loudly. My breath caught. I could see his hand sliding along her waist, across the curve of her hip. She was half turned to face him, lips parted, eyes closed. The softness of her hair spilled over his shoulder as he bent to kiss her neck. I heard a muffled sound. Her voice. That tone I used to think was meant only for me. I froze, an icy shock gripping my spine. I wanted to rush in, rip him away from her. But I just stood there. It lasted seconds, maybe less. Then something in my gut twisted, a wave of nausea and anger I'd never felt before. That was enough. I pushed the door open with a jolt. They both whirled around, wide-eyed, panting. She gasped, covered her mouth. He tried to stammer an apology or something. I didn't care. I didn't shout. I didn't swing. I just stared at them. They stared back, paralyzed. Then Tom tried to say, "John, it's not what." And I laughed. A harsh, low sound, choking on bitterness. I remember spitting out something like, "It's exactly what it looks like." He went quiet. Sarah's eyes welled up. I turned and walked out, ignoring her plea to stop. My mind was a swirl. I felt physically ill, my throat constricted, my chest burned. I made it back into the main area of the house, the music and chatter suddenly assaulting me. I needed fresh air. I stepped onto the patio, gulped in the cold night air. A couple near the door gave me a curious glance but left me alone. For a moment, I considered just leaving, grabbing my coat and walking away. But anger flooded my veins. I wasn't going to storm away in silence. I'd come here with my wife. The entire night had been a charade of old friends, toasts, laughter. I refused to let it end like this, so I went back inside, found my phone, and walked straight to the speaker system that was playing music through the living room. I fiddled with the cables until I had a direct line. That was reckless, but I was past caring. People turned to look, confused. They thought I was about to make a toast, maybe. And in a sense, I did. I pressed play on a voice memo I'd recorded earlier in the day. Because yes, in the weeks leading to this, I'd suspected something was off. In a private moment, I'd bugged her phone. I'd found a conversation she'd had with a friend, bragging about meeting a special someone at the party. Tom. My body had gone cold when I heard that. So I recorded it. A snippet. Something that would confirm what was happening under my nose. Static crackled, then Sarah's voice came through the speaker, soft and throaty. "I'm not with my husband right now." A short laugh in the background. Her friends. Then the faint moan of God. "It's so late, but I can't stop thinking about him." Tom. The sound cut off abruptly as I paused it. Silence blanketed the room. People turned, stunned, exchanging glances. No one spoke. Glasses hovered in midair. Then a hush fell that was almost painful. I stood there, scanning the crowd, heart thudding. I saw Sarah freeze by the edge of the living room, her cheeks pale, eyes wide. Tom was next to her, silent. He looked away when I met his gaze. Coward. Someone dropped a glass. It shattered, and that sharp crash broke the spell. A few gasps. Then, absolute stillness again. Sarah tried to take a step toward me. I lifted a hand, just enough to halt her. She stopped, tears on her face. She whispered my name, but it didn't matter. I set my phone aside and shrugged off my blazer. Laid it neatly over a chair. Then I pulled off my wedding ring, set it on the nearby table. I remember how heavy it felt in my palm for those few seconds, like a lump of lead. I placed it down with a faint clink. I looked at Sarah, my voice dead calm. "You were my God." Then I sank to one knee, not in supplication, but in a final farewell, a gesture I'm not sure I fully understood. Maybe I was burying the last piece of me that believed in us. Sarah reached out as if to say something, but no words came out. The onlookers watched with a mixture of shock and fascination. No one tried to interrupt. I stood up, ignoring the dryness in my throat, ignoring the pounding in my ears. My voice felt detached, like it was coming from someone else. "I don't want a scene," I said. "I just want everyone to know what happened here. I want it clear." My gaze flicked to Tom, whose face was ashen. "Don't worry," I added quietly. "I'm not doing this to fight. I'm just leaving. But I'll leave a reminder." I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small envelope, an old hotel booking stub with Sarah's name on it, something I found on her phone. She had no clue I'd printed it out. I slid it into the pocket of her coat that was hanging on a chair. Then I turned to the stunned guests. "In case anyone wonders," I said, and my voice had a razor edge. "Now you know." Then I grabbed my blazer, put it back on. It felt heavier than before. I walked out. Everyone parted like the Red Sea. No one spoke. No one dared. Sarah's friend tried to reach for my arm as I passed, but I brushed her off. The door closed behind me, and I was gone. The next day, I packed a suitcase. Not everything, just enough. I left behind anything that reminded me too strongly of Sarah. Photographs, wedding gifts, the bed we'd shared. I had no plan. I just knew I couldn't keep breathing the same air in that house. The flight to Dallas was at noon, but I canceled it. My parents still lived there, but I wasn't ready to face them. Instead, I booked a cheap motel on the outskirts of town, ironically the same one I'd found proof Sarah booked with Tom. The motel was near the highway, with a flickering neon sign that squealed. The room smelled of old carpet and stale cigarettes. A single bed, a stiff chair, a battered desk, and a TV that only got local channels. But it was away from that house, from those memories. I tossed my bag on the bed and sank into the chair. That's where I spent the next few hours, mind spinning, trying to piece together the reality of my new life. At some point, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. A text from Sarah. I didn't open it. Then a call. I silenced it. Another text. Another. Eventually, I turned the phone face down. Let her wonder how it felt. I tried to eat something from a vending machine, a bag of pretzels, but couldn't get past 2 bites. My stomach was in knots. I dozed off eventually, nightmares swirling, jolting awake with my heart pounding. When morning light seeped around the curtain, I showered and got dressed. Put on a fresh shirt, the only tie I'd brought. Looked at my ring finger, felt naked without the band. No regrets. A sense of numbness settled in. Maybe that's how I was dealing with the pain. Wrapping it in ice, letting anger keep it from consuming me. I checked out of the motel, ignoring the curious glance from the clerk. The only place I could think of going was the office. My job. My normal routine. So I drove there, parked in my usual spot, walked in as if everything was fine. My coworkers noticed my stiff expression. I responded with nods, forced a polite grin. I had a meeting that morning. I sat through it, barely hearing the presentation. My boss asked if I was okay. I lied. Said I was just tired. Around lunchtime, I finally looked at my phone. Sarah had left voice messages, typed texts. The gist. She was sorry. She never meant to hurt me. It was a mistake. She was confused. She needed to talk. My jaw clenched. She'd had an affair. But now that it was out in the open, she was confused. I set the phone aside. I thought about Tom. That smug face, the confident stance, the way he averted his eyes when I looked at him. How he'd stolen what I considered mine. Not property. No, Sarah wasn't property. But he'd taken something intangible. A place in her heart that I thought was mine alone. The pain of being replaced gnawed at me. I'd always given Sarah room to be creative, to explore her passions. I never thought I needed to watch my back. I felt a wave of anger so strong that I had to step outside the office. My hand shook. The parking lot was half empty. I wanted to drive off, track him down, make him face me. Instead, I took a walk around the block, breathing in the cold air. Slow, deliberate steps. Sometimes controlling anger is the best I can do. By the time I got home that evening, yes, I went back to our house because it was mine too. I was numb again. But Sarah was there. She was seated on the living room couch, eyes rimmed with red, as if she'd been crying for hours. She looked up when I entered. "John," she began, voice trembling. I said nothing, placed my keys on the table, took off my jacket. I could smell her perfume, lighter than usual. The air felt charged with tension, like an invisible wire between us. She stood up, hands twisting together. "I know you hate me," she said. I don't know how to explain. Please let me try." I looked at her. "Did it just happen?" I asked calmly. "A one-time thing?" She shook her head, tears gathering again. "No." She swallowed hard. "I saw him a few times. We talk about. I don't even know. It just..." She stopped, covering her mouth. I felt my jaw tighten. Then what's left to explain? She took a breath. "I never wanted to fall in love with him. Or maybe it wasn't even love. It was excitement. I felt alive, John, because I was lost." Her tears streamed down her cheeks. "I felt like you didn't see me anymore. We were just drifting. I let a second pass, and you thought a fling would fix that." My voice stayed level, though anger simmered beneath. She opened her mouth, closed it, then burst into sobs. That raw, broken sound that used to melt me. I didn't move, didn't comfort her. She eventually quieted, wiping her eyes with trembling fingers. "I'm sorry," she said, voice hoarse. I know you can never forgive me, but I had to tell you." I stared at her, felt that hollow ache. Part of me wanted to embrace her because she was hurting. Another part of me burned with the memory of her pressed against Tom in that dark room. She read my silence for condemnation. She broke down again. Finally, I spoke. "I'm not here to talk about forgiveness," I said. "I'm here to pack some more of my things, then I'm leaving." She tried to protest, choking on her words. "Please, can we just..." "Sarah," I said, my tone quiet but firm, "did you feel alive when you were with him?" She closed her eyes, tears slipping down. A slight nod. I nodded back, something inside me fracturing anew. "Then that's all I need to know." I walked into the bedroom, started gathering clothes into a suitcase. I heard her sobs from the living room, each one like a dull punch to my gut. My hands shook, but I focused on the simple task of folding shirts. After a few minutes, I zipped the bag and stepped out. She sat on the couch, eyes blurred with tears, her face white. I paused. Memories hit me. Our wedding day, her bright smile, the softness of her voice when she said yes. That memory felt centuries away now. I turned, heading for the door. "I'll be in touch about details," I said, meaning money or property or whatever else needed settling. Her voice rose, desperate. "John, I never wanted it to end like this. I never wanted to lose you." I glanced back once, my face as cold as I could make it. "You lost me the minute you chose him," I said. "Even if you didn't mean to, it's done." Then I left. I spent the next few days at a furnished rental downtown. A short-term lease, paid month to month. The place was nicer than the motel, but still felt like a stranger's home. I avoided everything. Phone calls, texts from Sarah, even from my sister. My mind clung to the rage, the sense of betrayal. Yet I couldn't fully escape. Memories followed me in the quiet moments. I'd see Sarah's laugh in some random reflection in a store window, or I'd catch a whiff of her perfume on a passing stranger, and my heart would lurch. Then I'd remember her silhouette in that dark room with Tom. That mental image hammered my chest until I wanted to break something. To cope, I started going to the gym every morning before work. The physical exhaustion helped me sleep, at least a little. Evenings, I'd stare at the TV without absorbing anything. My appetite was shot. I lost a few pounds, noticed my cheekbones in the mirror. A week later, Sarah showed up at my new place unannounced. I opened the door to find her on the doorstep, holding a small box of my belongings. A picture frame, some stray mail, a couple of shirts. She looked worn out, like she'd lost sleep too. "How did you find me?" I asked, voice flat. She hesitated. "Your sister." I asked her. "I'm sorry." I moved aside, let her in, mostly to avoid making a scene in the hallway. She stepped inside, eyes scanning the bare living room. No decoration, just a couch, a coffee table, a single lamp. "Why are you here?" I asked, crossing my arms. She placed the box on the floor. "Wanted to return your things. And I need to talk. Please." I stared at her, so many conflicting emotions swirling. "Talk." She lowered her gaze. "I'm not with him anymore. Haven't seen him since the party. I told him it was a mistake. He keeps calling, but I ignore it." I felt a flicker of satisfaction, overshadowed by bitterness. "That's your business." She nodded, tears gathering. "I know I hurt you beyond repair. I don't expect forgiveness. But I want you to know I'm done with him. I never want him near me again." Anger flared. "That doesn't change what happened. I saw you with him." I practically spat the words, remembering the sight of their bodies pressed together. She winced. "I know. God, I know." Her voice cracked. "If I could take it back, you can't." Silence. She wiped her eyes with trembling fingers. "Then what do we do now?" I breathed in, counting to 3, trying to steady myself. "We handle this like adults. I'll speak to a lawyer. We'll decide on the house, finances. If you want to keep it, buy me out. If you don't, we sell it. That's it." She started to cry again, but more softly. "John, I'm so sorry. I know you probably think I'm an awful person. Maybe I am." She looked up, tears on her cheeks. "But I still love you." My chest tightened. That word, love, had lost its meaning somewhere in that dark room. I couldn't trust it from her lips anymore. "Sure you do," I said, voice heavy with sarcasm. "You should go." She nodded slowly, picking up her purse. On her way out, she paused. "There was a time," she said, voice shaking, "when we'd fall asleep talking about our future, traveling together, building something bigger than ourselves. I can't believe this is how we end." I stared at her, jaw set. "You ended it the night you took him to bed." She opened her mouth, closed it. Then she turned and left. The door clicked shut behind her. I stood there for a moment, heart pounding. That conversation changed nothing, but it did confirm something. She was truly remorseful. The part of me that used to care about her happiness felt a small twinge of pity. But the wound was too fresh, too deep. I refused to let that pity overshadow my anger. In the weeks that followed, I consulted a divorce attorney. We discussed property, assets, the usual. I told him I wanted it clean, minimal drama. He said I'd have to talk to Sarah about details. I braced myself. Meanwhile, my nights were restless, haunted by a betrayal. I found my temper flaring at small inconveniences. A coworker's silly mistake at work, a driver cutting me off in traffic. I'd feel hot rage surging, close to boiling over. I had to clamp down on it, keep control. I was determined not to end up behind bars or in some public meltdown. This was my fight to handle quietly. I decided the best revenge was to let the truth stand on its own. People from the party talked. Rumors spread. Sarah's friends whispered. Tom's reputation took a hit at the bank, apparently. I heard from a mutual acquaintance that management frowned on messy personal entanglements. He was under some scrutiny. That knowledge gave me a grim satisfaction. I didn't have to lift a finger. Consequences happen on their own sometimes, but I also wanted a personal sense of closure. In a moment of impulsive clarity, I asked a friend who worked in a private security firm if he could dig up some background on Tom. I didn't plan to blackmail him, but I wanted leverage, or at least to know who I was dealing with. My friend gave me a discreet report. Tom had a pattern of short-lived affairs, a string of exes who described him as charming but superficial. He was good at his job, but not so good at personal relationships. No kids, no spouse, just a smooth talker who liked to seduce. I considered confronting him directly. The image of smashing my fist into his jaw gave me a momentary thrill. Then I realized that giving him that power over me was pointless. If Sarah meant enough to him, he'd try to keep her. But apparently, she'd already pushed him away. So he was just another user, floating to the next conquest. My war wasn't with him. It was with the memory of what my wife and I had lost. Months passed like that. The divorce proceedings began. Sarah and I met a few times with mediators. She was subdued, cooperative, tears always near the surface. We agreed on most terms. The house was to be sold. Neither of us could bear to keep it. We parted ways physically, too. She rented a small apartment. I kept my downtown rental for the time being. I heard from mutual friends that she was going through therapy, talking about her guilt, her regrets. I listened politely, but I didn't respond. My path was set. I found a new place to direct my energy. Writing. It started as a journal, venting my thoughts in the early morning hours. Then it turned into a side project for a marketing blog, focusing on personal struggles in modern relationships. It kept me busy, gave me an outlet. One evening, I got a call from an unknown number. I answered out of habit. It was Tom. He sounded tense, somewhat contrite. He wanted to meet, said he owed me an apology, a conversation, man to man. Part of me wanted to hang up on him. Another part was curious. I told him I'd think about it and call them back. I considered ignoring it, but something inside me wanted that final confrontation. Maybe it was my last chance to rid myself of the bitterness. So I agreed to meet him in a public coffee shop downtown. A busy place, neutral territory. He was already there, wearing a crisp shirt, hair neatly styled. He stood when he saw me, extended a hand. I ignored it and sat. He sank back down, swallowing. "John," he began. I'm sorry. What I did was wrong. I never intended to. He looked genuinely uncomfortable. I studied him. No more smug grin, no more cocky stance. He looked like a man forced to confront his own stupidity. "Just say what you need to say," I said quietly. He nodded. "I wasn't trying to break up your marriage, I swear. It was just attraction. It turned into something physical, and I was selfish. I thought she was unhappy, that you two were drifting. I convinced myself it was okay." My lip curled. "You convinced yourself an affair with a married woman was okay. Brilliant." He flinched. "I know. I'm an ass." He exhaled, ran a hand through his hair. "I regret it, truly. She told me she was done, and I accept that. I just wanted you to know. I'm not proud." "I'm sorry." I watched him for a long moment. Part of me wanted to tear into him, lash out with every ounce of pain he caused me. But then I realized I was done. My revenge was living my life without the weight of his existence on my mind. I refused to let him keep renting space in my head. "Doesn't matter now," I said. My voice was calm, even. I saw what I needed to see. "And I'm done with both of you in that context." He nodded, looking relieved at my measured tone. "I understand. If there's anything, I don't need anything from you. Just don't ever contact me again." I stood up. He opened his mouth, maybe to protest, but he closed it. I turned and walked away, a quiet finality settling in my chest. The air outside felt a fraction lighter. Maybe that was the last step in a bitter chapter of my life. In the months after, Sarah and I finalized the divorce. Paperwork was signed. The house sold quickly, thanks to the heated real estate market. We split the proceeds. I transferred the money for a new place, nothing fancy, just enough space to start a new chapter. She moved forward, too, though I heard from a friend that she was attending therapy, trying to rebuild her sense of self. I found I didn't resent that. Maybe it's good she's looking for answers. The day the divorce was final, I sat alone in my new, half-furnished condo. The windows overlooked a busy street. The hush inside reminded me of that night, the single plate on the table. But this time, the silence felt different, less oppressive, more open. Like the stage was cleared, and I could decide how to set it. I took a deep breath, let my shoulders relax. My phone lit up with a text. It was my sister, checking in. I typed back a quick message. All done. I'm okay. Then I set the phone aside. Outside, the sun was setting, streaks of gold across the sky. I stood by the window, watching the city lights flicker on. It struck me that my mind wasn't churning with rage or sorrow anymore. There was still an ache, but it wasn't the white-hot wound it used to be. More like a scar, an old injury I could live with. Sarah and Tom were behind me now. They'd always be a part of my story, but they wouldn't define me. I remembered the feeling of kneeling in front of that crowd, telling Sarah she'd been my God. That moment stuck with me, how I'd once placed her on a pedestal, worshipped the life we shared. Now I knew I had to find my own worth, my own path, without worshipping anyone but myself. A subtle wave of relief washed over me. This was my liberation. The anger had served its purpose, fueling me through the worst nights, but holding on to it forever would only chain me to the past. And I wanted to be free. I opened a new tab on my laptop, metaphorically and literally. The old part of my life was closed. A new one waited, blank, ready for me to write whatever came next. I didn't have all the answers, but I knew I had the power to shape them. I thought about the men and women out there who'd gone through the same heartbreak. The quiet half of our generation carrying their own burdens, some screaming inside. Maybe they never got closure. Maybe they swallowed pain in silence. I felt a pang of empathy for them. Betrayal leaves a mark. But it doesn't have to be the final sentence in your story. I took out my phone, opened a new file in my writing app. Typed a few words. May our age. Betrayal and da God of war. That made me smile a little. A private joke. My old sense of humor trying to resurface. I might use that as a heading for a personal essay or something. Then I typed a few lines, raw thoughts, letting them spill onto the screen. Words about pain and release, about being replaced, and how vengeance sometimes means simply walking away and not looking back. When I finished, I stared at those words. No more illusions, just facts, simple and stripped of sentiment. My eyes burned, but I refused to cry. Instead, I saved the document, closed the laptop, and walked to the kitchen. I grabbed a clean plate, placed it on the table. Then I went to the cupboard and took out a second one, setting it beside the first. Because I decided I didn't want to eat alone forever. Maybe not now, maybe not soon. But eventually, I'd share a meal with someone who knew how to treat it like a feast. I flicked off the living room light, let the evening shadows fill the space. The city hum outside felt reassuring. Life goes on, with or without you. I inhaled, exhaled. No more illusions. I'm free. Silence wrapped around me once more, but it didn't scare me this time. Maybe that's how healing begins. In quiet spaces, one slow breath at a time. Unburdened by the ghosts of the past. And so I let myself sink into that silence, feeling it cradle me like a new beginning.